This episode of the CUInsight Experience podcast is sponsored by Trellance Cooperative Holdings Incorporated. Trellance is the parent company behind some of the most trusted credit union tech providers, such as Rise Analytics, ProBridge, and Optiri. By providing tech to credit unions and investing in new solutions, Trellance aims to create growth opportunities for the entire industry and to empower credit unions to embrace innovative new technology. Learn more at trellance.com.
Welcome back to the CUInsight Experience. I'm Randy Smith, one of the co-founders of CUInsight.com, and I am here with my co-host, my partner in podcasting and in life, Jilly Nowacki.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jilly Nowacki, founder, president, and CEO of Humanidei. Today's conversation is about something every leader experiences, but not everyone understands how to manage.
Yeah, we're talking about finding your leadership rhythm, the patterns, routines, and energy that shape how you show up every day.
Because leadership isn't just about what you do. It's about how you move through your days, your pace, your presence, and your ability to stay grounded, even when things get chaotic all around you.
And today's guest is someone who leads and I know also lives with intention and consistency. We are thrilled to welcome back to the podcast, first time with Jill as a co-host, but Ken Cahoon, the CEO of Signal Financial. Ken, my friend, welcome back to the CUInsight Experience.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be on your show. I love listening to your podcast. As I said before, it's great. You don't have a lot of credit union focused podcasts out there. You guys are one. So really, really appreciate that you guys give us a platform to talk. So love your podcast.
Thank you, my friend. We appreciate the kind words. And today, just to set the stage, we're going to talk about finding your leadership rhythm, how you structure your days, how you manage your energy, and how you stay in flow as a leader in not only your credit union, but the credit union movement.
And not just when things are going well, but also how you recognize when you're out of rhythm and what it takes to reset and get back to center.
So Ken, let's just start right here, and maybe all three of us can kind of talk through this as well. We'll start with you. What does your ideal leadership day look like?
Okay. Well, I'm going to start from the beginning. Okay. So, and I actually had to kind of change my rhythm when I got the new position here at Signal. Now my days, instead of starting at like maybe 7 o'clock, 6:30, now they start at 4:30 a.m.
So you're ready for lunch right now when we're recording at 9:30 a.m., right?
Exactly. So I've been up for 5 hours. So I get up at 4:30 now and I work out. I had to kind of change it up a little bit where I used to work out after work, and that made my day longer in the evening time. So I changed it up and said, okay, let's go to work out earlier. So I get up at 4:30 and I'm probably at the gym by 5 a.m., work out for about an hour and a half. And as I'm working out though, it clears my head. It gets me prepared for the day, kind of think about some of the things that I need to get done and some of the things that might have happened the previous day. So it kind of swirls in my head in the morning time, but I feel more prepared after I get work and I work out. After that, I kind of go home, I get ready, I kind of watch the news, kind of figure out what's going on in the world from a world perspective. And then when I drive in, I kind of, I listen to podcasts like yours. That's a plug for you guys. So
we appreciate it. We appreciate it.
That's the headline. Yeah. The CUInsight Experience, the key part.
So, with that, I like to listen to some nuggets that other leaders have and what they do and so forth, and kind of compare notes as far as what I do. So really, really love listening to your guests. And I also love listening to you guys kind of going through and just kind of talking about just regular stuff that we normally don't talk about, but we think. So, I love that. And so as I get in, and my days are kind of like, they're different. I love my days now because, again, Monday, that is kind of my day that I have with my direct reports, my C-suite team. I have my one-on-ones. So I'm doing one-on-ones all day Monday and just kind of getting their perspective as far as working through first half of the meetings, more tactical stuff. What's going on in your department? Did you hit these deadlines and so forth? Second half of my meeting is all about leadership, all about growth for them. What things can we talk about is going to make them grow as an individual and in their particular role? So I kind of split it up between those two things when I have my one-on-one. So it's not just a check the list, go, oh, did you do this? Did you do this? I try not to do that. So that's not really a one-on-one. It's not really effective. So it's more, you definitely have to go through as far as some of the things that they've done or things they need to do. But just the whole point, just sitting down one-on-one and finding out what's going on. First of all, in their lives, is everything going well? That's how I start all the meetings with is, hey, how's everything going? How's your weekend? Those types of things. And then as far as the last part of the meeting, we talk about their growth as far as their professional growth.
I'm going to jump in and ask some clarifying questions on Monday before we move into Tuesday. So how long have you been at Signal Financial now?
I've been here. Actually, I just hit my year anniversary in February. So I've been there.
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Did that one-on-one Monday schedule, did you inherit that when you walked in? Did you build it right away? Or did you kind of learn over time that was what was going to work?
I had to kind of learn that over time because I had my one-on-ones of democracy. It was kind of scattered throughout the week. So it became a little bit chaos for me. So I want to kind of hone into, okay, this day is my day of coaching. That's my coaching day. And that's kind of the things that I want to do as far as from a leader standpoint. While I'm the CEO, I think you also have to be the head coach, so to speak. So that Monday is like practice. You got to practice the way you play. So I really, hunker down and really consistently have those one-on-ones. And it's funny that employees, they look forward to that. They guess what? There's nobody else's time. It's just me and you. And we just kind of talk through some of the things that are going on and some of the things I'm going to help you as far as growing as an individual and as an employee. So that's something that I created and I stick to it. And, everybody's on board with it.
I think that's really interesting because sometimes I think as the leaders, we can, I don't want to say fall out of rhythm, but I guess I would even say this. I think sometimes as leaders, our calendar dictates us more than say what our priorities are. And I mean, this is something I would ask both of you. If you were to look out at your calendars today, does your calendar actually reflect your priorities or is it just more your availability?
That's a good question. As far as how my calendar reads, it probably, I'll try to have my priorities to kind of dictate my calendar. Again, my Monday is my coaching day. My Tuesday is my more strategy with my C-suite team. My Wednesday is the strategy or more the execution with my executive team. Thursday is my day as far as vendors, board members, SAG groups. That's my meeting with them. And my Friday, I use that for my more visionary thinking, strategy thinking. So that's kind of my office time where I'm just kind of alone and looking at kind of replaying the tape of the week. Just kind of watching film. You'll notice I'll probably go back to sports analogies because I love sports. But again, we got to go back and when you play a game or so forth and you play against the opponent, guess what? The next week you watch the tape. And that's kind of what I do in my head on my Fridays. And then, I do my preparation for the following week. But I also want to make sure I stay on target with the vision and strategy. So that's kind of how my Fridays look. That's how my week looks.
I love that structure and that setting out with it and that intentionality and, going into so I'll use mine. I'm maybe not as good at the sports quotes, but is it I think it's attributed to Mike Tyson or it's like you got to plan until you get punched in the face with it. And so and what I'm sharing in common with you is like, I'm an early riser too, because I know it's very unlikely my day is going to get disrupted between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. So like I can do things during that time where it's highly unlikely someone else is going to add a priority to that particular time block I have. So I feel like I have control of that. In some ways, I feel like after 9 a.m., all bets are off. When you think about it from that, you've got this really structured week and it's like perfect plan. And sometimes execution is not as good as the plan. How do you decide what's absolutely non-negotiable versus what can shift? So do you say, okay, I will never compromise on one-on-one with my team because if I can't get them right, the rest of it doesn't work. But if I have to give up some vendor time, I can delegate that, for example. So how do you decide what it is that only you can do, those non-negotiable things that you have to stay committed to versus what you can compromise? And maybe can you extend this to the workout idea too?
Well, we
That's a
were
good point.
recently at a conference with Ken, and I can tell you, the guy's in the gym in the morning because I think I made it 1 or 2
That's
days,
right.
but he was there every day, I think. So, yeah.
That's exactly. You were in there early too, Randy. You were there early too. So, but yeah, as far as the non-negotiables, I think the one-on-one time with the engagement, the engagement with your team is a non-negotiable for me, because again, the more you engage with your people, the more they start to understand you, how you operate, and the more that they understand the vision and the mission and so forth. So I can't skip weeks without having my one-on-ones with my team. And also they notice that stuff. You didn't have our one-on-one, they'll let you know. At Democracy, I think I negotiated that sometimes, and we'll have it next week. And that was the wrong thing to do. And for me, it's just like, that is probably one of my most important meetings, along with all the other ones from a strategy standpoint with my team. But that's a huge non-negotiable for me, especially when you have to lead through your people. That's one thing that I had to learn. You have to execute through your people. And I learned a lot going from being a VP to a CEO. That was a big jump for me. But I'm like, that's no problem. I can take care of it. I'll just do the things that I did well here and just transfer it over here. And that was not the case. While I feel that I was a great motivator and I was able to get people to do things and we were able to excel in memberships and all those other things. But as a CEO, you have other people to do that. So, you have to make sure that your vision is clear and concise and that you're communicating it to everybody across the organization. So, but it all starts with at the top. You have to make sure you're clear and concise with your executive team and make sure that trickles down to everybody else. So my biggest thing is that's why the one-on-ones are important, because you have to lead through your people.
Joe, you work with a lot of leaders. Do you think sometimes it's such an interesting thing, right? Like, because you also coach a lot, you and Tracy coach a lot of people in our space. Do people sometimes hide behind being busy instead of being intentional?
Probably not on purpose, but so fun fact for our listeners, I listen to every podcast. Randy listens to none of the podcasts. So I re-listen after we record the episodes. And so this morning, as I was getting ready, I was listening to the podcast we recently recorded with Mark Zook from Maps Credit E. And this idea of when we get to a point of feeling a little uncertain or feeling like there's chaos, it's very much human nature to step back into what we know we can do well and what we know we can control. And so from that perspective, you go from like that idea that Ken's talking about, that's such a critically important leadership lesson of when you become, the higher up you go, the more critical the skill is to execute through your people instead of to take action on your own. And most of what gets us to those highest leadership roles are effective execution. And so when we start to feel a little bit itchy, a little bit uncomfortable, we fall back into that place of, well, I'll just do it myself because I know I'm good at this. And at the end of the day, I can look back and say, oh, look at all these things I accomplished today. It's very tangible. And that busy calendar, you can look at that calendar and say, nobody can object to whether or not I'm doing my job. Look at me. I'm in back-to-back meetings all day. But the reality is you're more effective. I bet that Friday Ken spends in strategy and vision, that is probably so critical to what he does in those conversations on Monday. Mm-hmm. But if he's like, ooh, this feels like playtime, I'm not really sure how to measure my excellence here, so I'm going to go have some more meetings with vendors instead. Like, that's going to mess that up. So hiding behind being busy, no, not really hiding behind being busy, but like defaulting to it so that you feel like you have something you can look at and say, that's evidence that I was productive. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Ken, what do you think?
Oof. Man, that was like, you're preaching to the choir on that one, because I know in democracy, that's kind of, I got caught up in the everyday chaos sometimes of, oh, let me clear my emails. Oh, let me do this, or let me straighten this up. And I got caught up in that. And I was focusing more on the pebbles and not the big rocks. And I've learned now, and I've kind of switched it. Guess what? My email gets big. That's fine. I'll get to it. And again, I pick out the more important things and so forth. And I'll take some time to kind of clear it up and answer what I need to answer. But me thinking about, hey, how am I going to move the credit union forward? When this evolution of banking, you have to be on your toes. You have to think about what the next steps in the next couple of years. Because if you don't, you're going to get eaten up. That's with any business and so forth. But you have to have a forward-thinking type of mentality in today's environment. Because if you don't, you're going to struggle. So that's why I want to protect my Friday and making sure that I am thinking about the vision, thinking about some things and preparing for next week. And I'll come up and what I normally do to prepare for Friday, I'll send the agenda to my team so they're prepared. So we just hit the ground running as soon as we get on. We'll talk for about 10 minutes about the weekend and so forth, and we hit it. And we just go through the things, and then it goes into the whole coach mode. So I understand what you're saying, because you can get caught up in the little pebbles and so forth, and you think you're doing something and you're actually not doing as much. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying.
You're in an interesting place that I absolutely love to have guests on the podcast who've kind of been through this period. You're far enough in, as you said, a year at Signal. I'm sure you've settled into that rhythm and the routine and things of that nature, but democracy is still there, right? In your, I'm sure what you did there and what you accomplished there. Did you have kind of a time as you were transitioning between the two that you intentionally, because you went to a larger organization where you were like, okay, this is a time for me to reset. You've talked about some of the things that you did at Democracy that you were like, okay, it sounds like you have a bit of a different structure now that you're going through currently at the credit union. So was that an intentional reset that you made during that transition? Or did you look at it like a reset to kind of see what was working and where you could do better? Or has it been something over the past year that you've constantly built on, I guess?
Well, it was probably, I would say it was an intentional reset. But when I got at Signal, in probably the first couple of months, I tried to navigate the things that did well with Democracy over to here. And it just didn't work as quickly as it did. And I'm like, okay, I got to change something up here. But as a CEO at Democracy, I was still learning. So it took me a longer time to really get that aha moment, this is not working. But here, it was a different atmosphere. It was some of the changes that I made weren't very popular. And in Democracy, it was different. It was popular. Here it isn't as popular. So I'm going through trying to navigate how I'm going to get through it and so forth. But the change that I made, I stayed true to my feelings, true to my vision. And that's what got me through. Again, we went through a tumultuous time where we lost probably about 30 employees because of some of the changes that I made. And it was more or less, hey, look, I wanted to kind of bring people back to the office, and it was more remote. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I had to learn that. At Democracy, we're 5 days a week. And in this technology world, you can do remote stuff. And I had to learn that working at Signal. And they kind of had to teach me that type of thing, because I was coming in the first 6 or 7 months every day. But I put in place, say, look, I want to build a culture of camaraderie, community, engagement, collaboration. And to do that, we got to have some time together. So again, I mandate at least everybody's in the office at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So the bulk of the week, we're together. We're all together. I can walk over to an office and somebody will be in there. We'll talk and so forth. So I wanted to kind of build a culture. And to me, it's worked out, because guess what? We've had to do some replacement, but we've replaced people that are okay with it. And it's been really good. And I've actually had to learn, hey, look, remotely, I can move just as quickly by having certain meetings on Mondays and Fridays and so forth. And it's worked out great. So I've just had to make some changes to me that I used at Democracy that, hey, it just didn't work here. And I finally was okay with it. And I've actually grown as an individual and as a CEO by doing that.
That's what you're sharing is kind of this idea of you're coming in as a new CEO. And to you, this is a brand new, clean slate. You get to build from something. Mm-hmm. And when new leaders move into roles, it makes sense that those new leaders are looking at it and saying, oh boy, this is kind of my shiny new toy to play with. But the reality is that you're walking into a team of people that have been there, who have norms and habits and their own established ways of doing things.
Yes.
And so there can sometimes be a bit of a reality check, when you go in and you're like, I'm so excited to take this new toy and change it and build it and do stuff. And then you find that you have resistance. And my hypothesis is that there sort of needs to be some give and take. There needs to be some respect to, okay, you had people who've been here a while, they have their ways of doing things. They have their path they're on. They have their momentum. and new CEO got chosen to make some difference.
I was just going to say, the board chose that vision for a reason, right?
Right.
In the process. So, yeah.
And this was not on the think about this ahead of time type of questions. What did you learn in that kind of, you walked in with a vision ready to go, like probably a sense of urgency too, because most leaders I know today walk in with a really strong sense of urgency. How did you balance what you wanted to change with what maybe they wanted to hold on to?
For me, I wanted to start with the why. Why are we coming back? I can do my job just as effectively here. And that's true. That's a very true statement. But for me as a leader, and for us to grow and to really have a strong organization, I felt very strongly that we needed to be together as a family, so to speak. And I know that might be a little dramatic and so forth, but I really felt that I had to start with the why. And I explained, this is the reason why we're doing this. And I laid it out. I had to do it there's a couple of touch points. I had to do it. My first thing was to let it soak in. I sent an email because everybody's wondering when I came in, what are we going to do? Everybody, the rumors that come around, you're going to come in 5 days a week and so forth. And I wanted to kind of lay some of that to rest as far as kind of giving the reasons why. So I sent an email. Next thing, we had an all staff meeting, explained it there, kind of looked into their eyes. I like to see how people react. I'm a big body language person as far as how they might feel about a certain thing, and really dug into that. And I was able to kind of answer questions. Hey, fire them up to me. Let's go. And also there has to be some compassion behind that. I guess what I know that people have kind of built some of their lives around that. But again, I gave them probably, I want to say like 60 days for it to really sink in. So I gave them 60 days before we were able to do it. And again, there's some fallout and some attrition. And I knew that. I was ready for that. But I planned for it. You have to plan for something like that. You can't just think that, oh, well, people are going to work here. This is what happens. No, that's true. There's so many other places that people can work, and that's fine. It's just here. This is what we want to build. I want to build something, but I want to build it together. And that's why that was the biggest thing I talked to the team about. Hey, we're going to do this together, and we're going to have fun doing it. So that's kind of where that came from. But I really, to kind of get back to starting with the why and starting with the vision as far as where I want to take the credit union.
But let me ask you this, and I guess, Jill, I think you can talk about this as well, is like, we're all never in that perfect rhythm all the time, right? Number one, I would say, or ask to both of you, like, how do you recognize when you're off of it, right? Like when you're just not at that optimal place that and then what do you do to reset to get yourself back on track? And Jill, you can speak to that also, but when you're coaching somebody through it, right? Because I think like most things, it's not like if somebody else is like, you're off rhythm, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, you almost have to feel it and see it yourself to self-correct. It may wake you up a little bit to look at it, but you still have to look at it, right?
That question you're asking, when you recognize that you've lost your rhythm, what do you do to get back into where you...
That kind of reset, right?
Yeah. So for me, it's, I notice the chaos of the calendar. I notice that if you take like Ken's ideal week, like I notice that I'm being tempted to, like I'm looking at my calendar and scanning things and being like, okay, what can I move or what can I get rid of? And so I look at it and say, gosh, I'd block this time for like strategy work. And then I scheduled 4 meetings over the top of this time with myself. And so that would be my indicator that I'm out of balance, that I'm all over the place and letting kind of the calendar manage the day instead of intention manage the calendar. And what I recognize, and we talk about this a lot, Randy, is that once you say yes, I am not a person who can go back and say, just kidding. Like, I know I told you I'd do this, but I'm not going to show up for you after all. So my first thing is I got to honor those commitments I made when I was out of rhythm. What I can do is be more disciplined about what comes next. So if I find that I'm looking at my calendar and I'm thinking, oh gosh, I just give myself a 30-day stint where I didn't give myself the reflection time I need or the deep work I need. So what I could do then is look ahead to the end of that and be more careful about what I'm doing there. And for me, I do need that real formal step away, put that time on the calendar, block it out and reset in a really active way. I don't do great with a gradual reset. I don't do great with like, oh, well, just little bits at a time. Like I am best when I'm able to say, all right, I'm going to take 2 full days and really dig into how to rearrange these parts, how to think about things differently. And the last time I really did that was last May. I was able to spend that time thinking through this team has grown so much from where it was. And what do I need to do to put the right pieces in the right place to make sure we're ready for the next steps to move that forward? And for me, that's not something I can do with 1 hour free on a Tuesday and then another hour free on a Thursday. It needs to be chunks or blocks of time for me that I need to take the time to make. So I don't know, Ken, what do you think on that one? If you're out of rhythm, how do you reset?
I know, because it's so, I guess sometimes the day-to-day interruptions can kind of knock you off a little bit. It can just be something small that knocks you off, but it might take a couple of hours out of your time. And that frequently happened before my previous role. I let it happen. And like I said before, I didn't protect that time. So my executive assistant, she's great. I mean, me and her are in a great collaboration. So she manages my calendar. She does that as far as, okay, on Friday, prepare for your one-on-one, strategic thinking and all that. So I really block that time so nobody can get in there at all. But the biggest thing that I do as far as kind of get back in a rhythm, I kind of think of the end in mind, so to speak. If today is supposed to be my strategy day and it knocks me off, I have to get back on track. And it takes a little bit longer sometimes to do the little task switching, which is hard to do. But I really just kind of think about, hey, today is supposed to be the day that I'm supposed to be more the strategic mindset and more the visionary, because guess what? If I'm not doing it, that's my job. Nobody else is doing it. Everybody else is executing, my vision. So they're not doing CEO stuff. So I am. So if I'm not doing that, then who is? So that's one of the things that kind of keeps me back on track, just understanding my role.
I feel like that's a coaching question that tends to give people the most aha moment is like, when you are contributing at your highest value, the thing that your organization actually employs you to do, what are you doing? And most of the time people are like, well, I'm not checking my email, or I'm not like that thing you are the only person who can do. So exactly that. Like there's no one else in the organization doing CEO stuff, or like there sure shouldn't be anyway. And so kind of reset question of when am I contributing at my highest value? And reframing it to almost be like, because sometimes those are the most fun things. We choose these CEO jobs. Yeah. Those are things we like to do, but we kind of look at them like, well, I'll get to that good stuff once all my chores are done. And like, instead being able to look at it and saying, this isn't what you're doing because it's fun. This is what you're doing because you're stealing from the credit union if you don't contribute at that level, because that's what they're paying you for. That's why your salary is what it is and not something else. That's where you're contributing at the highest value.
Right. Jill, I got a question actually. That might be for both you, Jill and Randy. Is like, when do you do your visionary and your strategic thinking? What exactly does that look like? If you were to draw that, if you were to draw it and say, what does that look like? Just what activities do you do to get to that visionary and strategic thinking mindset?
You're asking the right person, and it isn't me, because Jill actually does this in our relationship too. We have a yearly strategic planning session with workshops and activities. So yeah, she's the perfect one to ask, but it's a fantastic thing. So.
Intentionality is very important. I need to ground it. Like I can't just like wake up on a Tuesday and be like, today I'm going to be strategic. Like I need to take inventory and I need to look through things. And one of the exercises that I think is really important, Randy and I go through it annually, but I think individuals should go through it quarterly, is this concept. It's the tool I like to use is called a wheel of life. And the wheel of life has 8 wedges in it. I probably can't name them all off the top of my head, but it looks at like career and recreation and family and spirituality and your finances. And it has you essentially just plot like, where am I in each of these wedges, and then draw a line. If you're pretty close to the outside of the circle, you're having some good fulfillment. But most people end up with, rather than like a perfect circle that's all between like around an 8 or a 9, most people end up with these like really funky shapes that indicate where you're out of balance in life. And so taking that time and looking at it and saying, boy, my career is rocking it, but I haven't spent any one-on-one time with a person who's really important to me in 90 days. Like I need to rebalance and think about that. And then it also allows you to give inventory if you're looking at that and you're saying, okay, we're doing great. And I think you could translate that even more focused into like just looking at the credit union and say, okay, we're going to look at these different areas. We're going to look at mission fulfillment. We're going to look at financial performance. We're going to look at culture. And we're going to see, how are we doing in this? And if you notice you've got some spikes there, like finances are great, but your team is totally burned out. Like that should tell you where you need a little more strategy and intention on that. So like, and maybe where you can shift focus, because in a lot of cases, when the revenue is going, the ROA is looking like it needs to, member growth is looking like it needs to, like using that dashboard. So in our personal life, the wheel of life becomes a great dashboard. But at the credit union, I'm sure you have those quantitative and qualitative metrics you can look at. You could say, hey, we're pretty great in this area. Where should our focus go to being able to boost up something else we care about? And I would say if your dashboard doesn't, take a step back and look comprehensively at more than just those quantitative metrics. But when you're really thinking about organizational health, are we just thinking about membership growth and ROA, or are we thinking about our team? Like how many folks have left that we didn't necessarily want to see go? How many internal promotions have we been able to make versus needing to hire executives from the outside? And those metrics too should help to kind of give that assessment. So I guess where you're talking about starting with the why, I'm starting with start with the temperature check on that and take that look and say, like, where are we really rocking it right now? And where maybe do we need to invest a little bit more?
That's real good advice. That's cool. I like that. That's really good. Because again, it's just like, you just walk into, like you said, just walk into your room and you sit down and you don't just flip the switch and it's like, oh, strategy time. I think that there's more intentional things that you have to do to get to that point. So yeah, that was really good advice.
A couple things as we're getting towards the tail end. No rush, but I guess I'd throw this out there and maybe we can each answer this one. For the leaders who are listening, and maybe if they feel a little bit out of rhythm, maybe they're driving into the credit union while they take a listen to this and they're like, yeah, I feel a little bit off right now. Any practical advice on something that they could do today when they sit down at their desk to help move them, let's call it, closer to balance?
That's a good question. I would say, and I'm going to kind of go back to what I've said before, and that's going back and starting with the why and the vision, and that drives everything. Just knowing where you're going as an organization, where you want to take it, that's a driving force for me. I mean, you can always go back and look at the vision statement and some of the things that you put in place that puts you closer to the vision. And I think when you get off rhythm, I think you have to kind of go back to that, where you want to take the credit union and so forth. To me, that balances everything out and it kind of gets me back on track. So just understanding the end in mind and understanding where you want to go as an organization, that puts me back on track.
For me, I think when a leader starts to feel out of rhythm, the first thing I would ask them to do is to check in with their values. And if they have their values, if they know what their values are, then to temperature check, are you able to live those values the way you want to right now? And so I talk often about how my top two values are growth and joy. When I start to feel like things are going wrong, I can look back at that and say, how is what I'm doing right now contributing to continued growth? And if I'm a pinball that's bouncing from meeting to meeting to meeting, I know I'm not working on that intentional growth forward. And then joy, like, is this giving me joy? Like, joy for me is time to actually meaningfully connect. And if I'm too busy watching the clock to be like, oh, sorry, time's up, I got another meeting to go to, like, that's not joy for me too. So I'm able to center that in what's getting in the way of my personal values that help with it. But I think it goes back to that idea, when you're out of rhythm, take inventory. And whether that inventory is an audit of how you're spending your time, it's an audit of how aligned you are with your values, or it's that audit of how closely you're actually aligning with that why. But like, take that time to take inventory before you start to fix it. Because if you try to just start pushing buttons. Like you don't know when you're going to, push the nuclear button instead of the one that's actually going to fix the problem here. Randy, what about you? What do you think is most important?
The second part of this will surprise no one that listens to this podcast. But the first is, and I think both of you hit on it, is like if somebody was driving in today listening and they're just feeling off, I would say sit down and look at your calendar.
Yep.
And to go back to Ken's why and your growth would be looking at it in your calendar and if it's filled up with a bunch of stuff that quite honestly, the board didn't hire you for, or the credit, you're not doing your best for the credit union. I'm a firm believer, just like Jill said originally, that you have the commitments that you've made. You have to, you go through with them. But from that point forward, start saying no if it doesn't fit that. So, and if it doesn't fit into there, no is a full sentence and an answer. So it's, I would say a lot of that. That's just my opinion. A couple quick rapid reflections just before we go and wrap this thing up. So just, I'm going to throw out a couple of questions. I think Jill has one as well. Looking for just like that. One word answer. The most important part of my daily rhythm is?
I have to say working out. That gets me on track. That might have a different mindset. It gets me going. It kind of hits more of the, clearing of the mind, but also clearing of the body, making sure that I'm healthy, so to speak. So I know that's not a one word, but it's words.
Yeah. The most important part of my daily rhythm is what happens between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m.
I agree with both of you on those. How about one last one? Because I am watching the clock here. The habit that had the biggest impact on my leadership is?
I would have to say kind of going back to my one-on-ones. That's a habit I feel that has a huge impact because again, I get a snapshot of what's going on without digging into the weeds. So it really helps me as far as giving a pulse of the goings on in the organization without digging in so much. So I would say that.
All right, Ken, thank you so much. This has been such a thoughtful and practical conversation today. We really appreciate hearing how you think about leadership, not just as what you do, but really how you sustain it and how you've built that forward.
Thank you so much.
And also, thank you for a reminder. I think that it was interesting when Jill and I were talking about having you back on the show. It was that question, what do we want to talk to Ken about? And part of it was, we assumed you had quite the rhythm, right? Like, so when it came to like your day and how you started it and things like that. So this was absolutely perfect. So thank you, my friend, for being here again.
Oh, definitely. No, I appreciate it. And thank you for having me on.
To all of our listeners, thank you for spending time with us again today. We greatly appreciate all of you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Share it with a colleague and join us next time on the CUInsight Experience. We'll be back soon with more conversations to help you lead with clarity, confidence, and purpose.
Until then, take care, friends. We will see you next time, and we can't wait to see who's next. So have a great day, everyone.
Thanks again to Trellance for sponsoring this episode of the CUInsight Experience podcast. To find out more about Trellance, visit trellance.com.